I never planned to ruin my marriage with one sentence. It wasn't something I rehearsed or secretly believed, waiting for the right moment to unleash. It came out slurred, careless, soaked in alcohol and ego, and the second it left my mouth, I knew something permanent had shifted. The kind of shift you feel in your chest before your brain catches up, like a floorboard giving way under your weight. My name is Emily, I'm 36, and until that night, I thought my marriage to Daniel was solid. Not perfect, not movie-worthy, but stable in the way adult relationships are supposed to be. We'd been together 11 years, married for 8. We had routines, shared jokes, a mortgage, and an unspoken agreement that we were a team, even when things felt dull or heavy. That night started innocently. A friend's birthday, a crowded bar in Manchester, loud music, cheap cocktails. Daniel didn't want to come. He had work early the next morning, said he was tired, said he'd rather stay home. I told him I'd be back by midnight. I told him not to wait up. At the time, it felt reasonable. I went with my co-workers instead. People I saw every day, but didn't really know. There was laughter, shots I didn't need, compliments I wasn't used to hearing anymore. Someone told me I looked amazing. Someone else said Daniel was lucky. I laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny. I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. By the time Daniel showed up unplanned, unexpected, I was already 3 drinks past sensible. I remember spotting him near the bar, his jacket still on, that familiar concerned look on his face. He wasn't angry. That's what makes it worse. He just looked out of place, like he'd stepped into a version of my life he didn't recognize. He leaned in and asked quietly if I was okay, asked if I wanted to head home. I should have said yes. I should have smiled, thanked him for coming, taken his hand. Instead, I rolled my eyes. I laughed and told him he was being dramatic. We stepped outside to talk. Cold air, cigarette smoke, the sound of taxis passing. He said he felt stupid standing there alone while I ignored him. He said he didn't recognize me tonight. His voice wasn't loud. It was tired, and that's when I said it. I don't even remember the exact lead-up. I remember feeling defensive, cornered, embarrassed in front of people I wanted to impress. I remember wanting to hurt him just enough to end the conversation. So I said, maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't need to drink this much just to feel alive. The silence after was immediate and absolute. Daniel didn't shout. He didn't argue. He just looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing a stranger wearing my face. I'd never seen that expression on him before. Something between disbelief and acceptance. He nodded once, said, okay. Then he left. No dramatic exit. No final words. He just turned and walked down the street, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was carrying something heavy and fragile at the same time. I stayed. I kept drinking. I laughed louder than before. I told myself I didn't mean it. I told myself he knew I didn't mean it. But every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. It was never him. When I got home at nearly 3 a.m, the house was dark, too quiet. His shoes were gone from the hallway. His phone charger wasn't on the nightstand. I stood there in my heels, makeup smudged, head spinning, and for the first time since I'd opened my mouth, fear cut to the alcohol. I checked the spare room. Empty. I checked the garage. His car was gone. I texted him, I'm sorry. I was drunk. I mean that. No reply. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying his face over and over. Not angry. Not hurt. Worse. Resigned. Like something inside him had quietly switched off. By morning, my hangover was brutal, but the guilt was worse. The house still felt wrong, like a place someone had moved out of, even though all the furniture was still there. At 9 a.m., my phone finally buzzed. One message from Daniel. We'll talk later. I need space. That should have reassured me. Instead, my chest tightened, because deep down, I knew space was exactly what I just created, and I had no idea how far apart was about to pull us. Daniel didn't come home that night, or the next. He stayed with his brother, he said later, because he needed somewhere quiet enough to think. I told myself that was reasonable. I told myself marriages survive worse than a drunk insult, People cheated and came back from it. People screamed uglier things in the heat of arguments and apologized. This was just a sentence. One bad night. But sentences have weight when they land on truths you've been avoiding. When we finally sat down to talk, it wasn't dramatic. No tears. No shouting. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, like strangers negotiating something delicate. Daniel looked exhausted, older somehow. He didn't ask me why I'd said it. He asked if I meant it. I tried to explain the alcohol, the pressure, the stupid need to feel interesting. I told him I loved him. I told him he wasn't boring. The words sounded thin even to me. He listened. He always did. Then he said something that still echoes in my head. He said, "You didn't say something new. You said something you've been thinking long enough to say without caring how it landed." I wanted to argue. I wanted to deny it. But my silence answered for me. He told me he'd been feeling invisible for a long time, that he'd noticed the way I lit up around other people and dimmed around him. That night had embarrassed him. It clarified things. He said he didn't want to be the person I tolerated out of habit, while resenting him for not exciting me anymore. We tried counseling, not because he begged, but because he believed in finishing things the right way. I went because I was terrified of losing him, not because I understood what I'd broken. That difference mattered more than I realized at the time. In therapy, patterns surfaced that I didn't like seeing. How often I dismissed him. How easily I weaponized sarcasm. How I'd mistaken comfort for stagnation and blamed him for my restlessness. Daniel owned his faults too, but there was a quiet finality in the way he spoke, like someone already halfway out the door. The drinking stopped being fun after that. Every social outing reminded me of what I'd cost us. Every empty evening at home felt heavier than the loudest bar ever had. I apologized more than I can count. Some apologies heal. Others just underline the damage. 3 months after that night, Daniel told me he wanted to separate. He said it gently, like he was delivering bad news to someone he still cared about. He said he needed to find out who he was without constantly bracing for disappointment. I didn't fight him, not because I didn't want him, but because I finally understood that wanting him wasn't enough anymore. We sold the house 6 months later, split things evenly. No lawyers, no bitterness, just a sadness that settled quietly between us like dust. On the day he moved out for good, he hugged me longer than I expected. He told me he hoped I found whatever I'd been searching for that night. I told him I hoped he found peace. Sometimes I replay that moment outside the bar. I imagine stopping myself. I imagine choosing silence. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get to erase the sentence that exposes a truth underneath. What I said didn't end my marriage by itself. It revealed a crack that had already been spreading, slowly, silently. Alcohol just stripped away my ability to pretend otherwise. Daniel is dating someone now. Someone quieter, kinder, who laughs easily at his dry jokes. I know because he told me, not out of cruelty, but closure. I'm glad for him. I really am. As for me, I'm learning something I should have understood sooner. Love isn't about excitement. It's about care, respect, and the way your words can either shelter someone or tear the roof off their sense of safety. That night, I chose carelessness over kindness. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything.